Magnata ridiculous her own wife for not listening. She is too ignorant to understand anything, he said between laughter, but later he bit her all the regrets to underestimate it when she adopted a surprising attitude. To continue, we ask you to support our channel. Take advantage of this video and subscribe now. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring stories that touch the heart. So breathe deeply, leave the problems outside, and follow this moving story with me. The background of this story is an exclusive event where few are invited. The glamorous room of the Fasano Hotel in São Paulo was taken by sweet instrumental music. Gathered, there were entrepreneurs, celebrities, and opinion manufacturers, all having fun, speaking and celebrating millionaire agreements. In the epicenter of this circle of power was Gustavo, a large man, wearing a flawless costume and braving a glass of whiskey in hand. He spoke with enthusiasm, laughing hard and telling anecdotes to anyone who wanted to hear. Next to him, almost in silence, Helena, his wife. She wore a long, dazzling in emerald green, keeping her posture business. He tried to hide the concern in the face of the amount of alcohol that Gustavo had already consumed. It was always like that. When he started drinking, he became vast, magnetic, but as the cups accumulated, arrogance was revealed. And any intervention by Helena was received with coldness or even aggressive. "Come on, Gustavo. It is late," she asked, slightly pressing her hand on her husband's arm. He frowned, clearly bored to be interrupted. He turned to his friends and made a mocking laugh. "My wife lives while playing right. This implies that I don't know how to take care of myself." The others around him laughed, in a tone of approval. Helena closed her eyes for a moment, looking for patience. I felt the tight stomach. It was not new. Whenever Gustavo exceeded, the story was repeated. "Not that, Gustavo. It's just that you drank too much to drive. We can call a driver or a taxi." Tried to chat. Her face hardens. Pride prevented him from accepting suggestions, especially if some came. "Don't be ridiculous, Helena. I am perfectly capable of driving." The intonation was clear, and Helena quickly realized that insisting it would be useless. With a contained sigh, she followed him to the parking lot. The heart beat him quickly because something warned him that nothing would end well that night. Gustavo unlocked the car and lit the engine. Helena hesitated before entering the passenger seat, but there was no safe choice. Let him drive alone was worse. The city of São Paulo shone with its intense lights. It was as if the night wanted to compete with the clarity of the day, such as the bustle of the streets. However, Gustavo led to a speed above normal, passing through traffic lights and corners without too much caution. "Speed, please," insists Helena. He laughs, hitting his hand on the steering wheel as if everything was a big joke. "You worry too much, Helena. Relax." Before she could protest, a red lighthouse came. He walked on the brake too late. The car has violently skidding on the damp asphalt. He became a he, and the noise of metal crashed into dread. Glass fragments have stolen. Helena felt her body launched against the bank, so everything happened. When he recovered his conscience, everything seemed cloudy and distant. The sirens resounded, but they looked stuffy. Helena had trouble moving her arms and legs, but a huge weight prevented her. Cried votes, figures ran. She blinked, trying to speak, but heard no sound. He thought there was something terribly painful. His hearing was different. The mouth of a rescuer has moved, but nothing he said has come to him. Panic has settled. He tried to say, "I don't listen to," but the voice itself only looked like an inner echo. He felt clear that the world was induced. When he wakes up for the second time, he found himself in a hospital room, surrounded by the characteristic smell of the disinfectant. The cardiac monitor was soft, but Helena did not hear it. On the instinct, he noticed the movement of the equipment, but he heard nothing. He felt a void, a silence that bored her. It was then that a woman of a white laboratory blouse arrived, and achieving the affliction of Helena, approached. He moved his lips, but Helena was always without capturing anything. The doctor had to use a notebook to communicate. The accident affected his hearing system. "Let's do more exams." The letters written on paper seemed to jump in Helena's eyes. She was deaf. She still tried to convince herself that she could be temporary, but time has passed and nothing has changed. At that moment, I couldn't think of anything else. And Gustavo, how was he? The doctor, noting his agitation, wrote, "Her husband had minor injuries but is stable. Information should be a relief, but Helena couldn't feel really good. There was much greater pain dominating his chest. The days at home were even more difficult, which was once common. Saucepan noise, its bird, the bell playing, disappeared. Now the silence was omnipresent. Gustavo first tried to be concerned, but little by little, his patience has become an irritation. Usually he spoke without facing Helena, and when she didn't understand what he said, he sighed and rolled his eyes. On the part, even simple movements such as reading the lips required an effort. I could see that Gustavo did not want to face this. The nights have become bitter. Helena saw impatience grow in her husband's gestures. Speaking to friends, he avoided commenting on the state of his wife. I prefer to ignore it, as if it was a nuisance. He grew up in Helena the certainty that he could not bear to live with someone who had a limitation. It happened that he even said cruel sentences. "You have to work harder. I cannot continue to repeat everything." And that injured her a lot. But the drop of water would be overturned at a business dinner in which Gustavo demanded his presence. The event had pomp, bright chandeliers, linen towels, illustrious guests. Helena was uncomfortable because without hearing, she was moved. Despite this, he tried to stay serene, smiling discreetly, trying not to disturb. Gustavo told stories to a group of business partners. They laughed, grilling each joke. In a moment, Helena felt cold in her spine. He turned around and managed to read her husband's lips. "She is too ignorant to understand everything I say now." This sarcastic comment made Helena's breath. She realized that everyone on the wheel laughed, some deviating her eyes, embarrassed. Others were having fun, as if it were normal to make fun of your wife. For a second, the time seemed to stop. The embarrassment was so intense that something broke in her. In silence, he picked up his glass of wine and poured it all over Gustavo's expensive costume. Gift reaction was an absolute shock. Helena simply left the room, her head high. As he opened the taxi door, he said he had made the first real decision for a long time, to choose. While walking unexpectedly in the illuminated streets, Helena hugs her bag against her chest, trying to protect herself from the fear that threatened her mastery. "I wouldn't go home. I didn't want to face Gustavo." The noise of the city was only a distant vagueness in his mind because he could not really hear it. He thought of a person, Roberta, the best friend he had moved from Gustavo himself. There, in the middle of the lights and the night wind, Helena decided she would seek it. A few hours later, he landed from a quick flight and went directly to Roberta's apartment. The friend was surprised, but did not hesitate to welcome him with open arms. He let Helena enter and, without accusation, served her tea. It was enough for Helena to collapse in silent tears. When she recovered her breath, she told her friend everything. The loss of hearing in humiliation suffered at dinner. "I was so blind," said Helena, even if she knew that her comment sounded ironic, given her problem with the audience. "And now I don't know what to do." Roberta, who had always had patience and empathy, replied, "You left. This is the first step, Hel. Remember, to start over requires courage." In the following days, Helena asked lawyers to start the divorce process. Living with Roberta was something temporary, but she needed to reorganize her life. It was already tired of living under fear and feeling a weight. It was in one of these conversations with the lawyer that Helena realized that there was still an open question: her hearing. She accepted what the doctors said shortly after the accident. But would it really be an irreversible loss? Roberta encouraged him to consult other experts. "Why not try again? Medicine evolves. What do you have to lose?" insisted on her friend. Then, after some research, they found the name of a specialist in auditory rehabilitation, Dr. Leonardo Santos. Helena made an appointment without great expectations, but with a piece of hope. When he arrived at the office, he noticed that the place was comfortable, decorated with soft colors. It made her a little calmer. Dr. Leonardo was a calm man, slightly wavy hair and a serene expression. He asked questions about the history of the accident, analyzed the old reports, and carefully noted Helena. "Maybe your hearing loss is not completely permanent," he said with caution. Helena's reaction was surprise and confusion, but the doctors said that there was nothing more to do. "I tried a hearing aid in the past, but all I got was intense headaches." He smiled, but in a global way, without illusions. Medicine evolves. There are new treatments and more modern technological adjustments. I do not promise a total remedy, but we can try to recover an important part of its hearing. What do you think? Helena felt her heart fire. For so long, it had conformed to this destiny. He swallowed hard, remembering all the difficulties he encountered, but something in her had changed. The old and submissive Helena had left. "I want to try," he said firmly. In the following days, Helena started treatment. Sound therapy sessions, device adjustments, and drugs have been introduced into your routine. It was exhaustive. There were times when he wanted to give up, but with each small improvement, even minimal, the determination was revived. She was careful, and not only in medical terms. There was something like Dr. Leonardo, who was going beyond professionalism. The patience with which he clarified each doubt, the sweetness of his gaze. But Helena did not allow herself to go beyond this thought. He had to heal his own injuries first. Meanwhile, the divorce with Gustavo continued. On a sunny morning, he was there at the Gustavo lawyer's office to sign the documents. He wore a well jacket, but the air of superiority once seemed a little shaken. However, he signed without too much hesitation, crossing the pages as if it were only another bureaucracy. Helena also signed without shaking the pen. She felt light, although emotional scars are still hurting. When he got up, Gustavo was limited to a comment, "Good luck, you will need it." She heard the trouble with a serenity that she did not expect to find in her. Did not respond. He took the bag and left, leaving everything he had imprisoned for so long. Outside, Roberta was waiting, a confident smile on her face. "How do you feel?" asked the friend. Helena looked up to the clear sky and sincerely replied, "Light. For the first time, I feel that I can breathe without asking for permission." The months have passed, and the life of Gustavo began to collapse. Far from his business after several dubious behaviors, he lost his job, and with that, the luxury that surrounded him. His contacts dispersed. He had to sell a car, an apartment, leaving only an under-frequency routine and the difficulty of supporting himself in the big city. It seemed to be fate giving him a late lesson. Helena already found a new step towards freedom every day. The relationship with Dr. Leonardo shrinks. He always accompanied it to the door of the clinic, spoke of books, films, and little things in everyday life. He did not shout him, he did not precipitate it, that did not make him feel less. And without Helena noticed, the feeling of admiration prospered. At the same time, Helena felt the desire to do something that made the second chance she had received from life. Commented with Roberta, a calm night, "I want to help other people who also suffer losses, not only hearing, but on all kinds of solitude, maybe abandoned children." Roberta found the idea beautiful and asked if she had something in mind. "I would like to visit an orphanage. I cannot explain well, but I think I should take a little affection and hope for those who have no protection." The next day, Helena called Dr. Leonardo. "Could you go with me in an orphanage? I would like your support." He admitted quickly, and a few days later they were there, in front of the doors of an institution that housed boys and girls without family. The director of the place obtained them with kindness and explained that the children would be satisfied with the visit. Many had already lost the hope of adoption. Helena visited the corridors, spoke to certain children, distributing attention. It was when he spotted, under a tree in the courtyard, two quiet boys, Renan, the elder, and Caio, the youngest. They looked like brothers, because the smallest supported his head on the biggest shoulder when he turned into a shabby. "Hi, "Can I stay here with you?" Helena asked, approaching. "If you want," replied Renan briefly, closing the book and looking at it with suspicion. She asked what they read, and Caio explained, excited. "It's a story of a boy who travels the world to find where he belongs." Renan finished more sober. "He has not yet found his house, but you will continue to look." Helena felt a knot in her throat. This search for a place in the world spoke directly to its heart. Smiled tenderly. "I think he will find it. Yes, sometimes it takes time." Renan then held the book more strongly, as if he protected it from disappointment. Helena, however, spoke to them for a while, and gradually the eldest gaze softens. She left that day, but could not forget their faces, started to return to the orphanage whenever possible. The condition for Renan and Caio has increased. Dr. Leonardo also accompanied it, participating in visits. On an occasion, Caio ran to Helena with a hand drawing. "I did it for you." He showed 2 hand dolls in hand. "Who are they?" Helena asked, delighted. "We!" Caio exclaimed with a smile that melted the heart. Helena felt tears arrive. It was at this moment that she knew, "I loved these boys." He shared this feeling with Dr. Leonardo on a rainy night after leaving him at home. "I know it seems crazy, but I feel something strong. I want to adopt them." He, without hesitation, replied, "No madness. You have a lot of love to give, and they need it." This is enough for Helena to decide to start the adoption process. The social orphanage smiled when he heard the request, but warned it can take a long time, with interviews, assessments, but if they are prepared, let's start. Helena and Dr. Leonardo did not decide. Over the months, each trip to the orphanage was an opportunity to strengthen links with Renan and Caio. So one day, she knelt before both. "Do you want to live with me and Dr. Leonardo? Would they like to be part of our family?" Silence was deep for a few seconds. Renan watched his brother, and Caio jumped on Helena's lap. "Yes, yes!" cried the youngest. Renan, more contained, simply lets tears roll. Finally, he nodded positively. From there, the bureaucratic process followed. Meanwhile, Helena and Dr. Leonardo organized the house to accommodate boys, prepare a warm room, buy books and toys. Affinity between them has been consolidated. However, they had to wait for functionalization. When the appeal confirming the adoption finally arrived, Helena barely believed. The social worker announced, "Congratulations, you are in good shape. Renan and Caio are officially children." Helena cried with joy. With Dr. Leonardo, he ran to the orphanage. Both received in a long hug. "We will never need to say goodbye again." Renan, tightening it hard, asked, "Promise?" Helena looked firmly her eyes. "I promise." After a while, the life of the new family was heading for another big event. The relationship between Helena and Dr. Leonardo, who, initially outside the patient and doctor, was now full of privacy and a company. They decided to get married. The ceremony was simple, held in a small place, with friends and dear. Renan and Caio entered their arms, carrying the alliances. The emotion took over when Helena and Dr. Leonardo exchanged votes. And at this very moment, Helena first felt a pure sound, the words, "I love you," coming out of her mouth, without noise or suffocating. The treatment had given concrete results. She listened better, tears mingled with happiness. Renan and Caio jumped for joy, attracting everyone's attention. It was the celebration of a family that formed unusual but solidly. The weight of the humiliation of the past has disappeared, replaced by a feeling of exhaustiveness. The weeks have become for months. The new house was full of laughter, conversations at the table, daily learning, until Helena started to feel strangely tired and sick in the morning. In my heart, I suspected what it could be. Roberta, knowing the symptoms, suggested a pharmacy test, and the confirmation came shortly after. Helena was pregnant. It was incredible. So many times, she fears that she could not do anything. She had thought that life was over when she had lost her hearing. And there were newlyweds, with 2 wonderful adoptive children and another about to be born. Happiness seemed to overflow every corner of the house. The The night he decided to say, Helena invited Dr. Leonardo for a quiet walk in the courtyard. Under the starry sky, he held an envelope with the result of the test. He read, and for a moment was without reaction. Then he made an emotional smile. Serious? Are we going to have a baby? Helena has just done yes, with tears of contentment. They tightened tights tight, and for the first time she heard her sweet laugh perfectly. It was as if God showed that even in darkness, a new light comes. Months later at the hospital, Helena entered work. He held the hand of Dr. Leonardo, seeking support for each contraction. And then, in the morning, Leon came into the world, announced with a cry that Helena heard perfectly. It was a personal miracle, a cycle closure. Delighted, he tightened the baby in his arms and stretched his hand to hold Renan and Caio, who looked at everything with enchanted looks. "He's so small," whispered Caio, smiling. "And so perfect," added Renan with a splendor in his eyes. Helena considered that if the past was marked by pain, the present was pure hope. She recalled the moment when she thought that the greatest loss in the world was heard. "Today, I understood that worse still, it would be to get lost, to make yourself very much loving. But this is not the case. I chose to be reborn." If you went through a time when everything seemed lost, but you found a way out, share your story in the comments. This can be exactly the message of hope someone needs. Also, don't forget to tell us where you are following this video. We like to interact with you. If this story has touched your heart, enjoy the video and subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. We have many other relationships full of faith and overcome you while waiting. Just click on the suggested videos on the screen and continue with us on this trip. Thank you very much for being part of this community that seeks empathy and daily renewal. May God bless you and your family with health, peace, and joy. We soon see each other in the next video.